Hello and welcome to Making Creativity Pay, the podcast where we talk to people in creative industries about how they promote and market their work. I'm Dan Barnett. On this episode I'm joined by Juliette Burton and Gareth Gwynn. Juliette is doing 3 shows at Fringe this year across both ticketed and free Fringe, and we discuss doing multiple shows and the differences between them. Gareth is performing his show Cyril after having it as a work in progress last year and having an unusual arrangement for his show which we discuss in the episode. We talk about skill swaps between the two of them, PR, social media advertising, and other ways to get the word out. I started by asking Juliette and Gareth to give a brief introduction about themselves.
I'm Juliette Burton. I am a comedian, a writer, presenter, and voiceover artist. And I have been doing Edinburgh Fringe for many, many years. I think the first time I did a show that I produced was 2011. First solo show was 2013. And before that, I was in other people's shows as a comedy actor. And I've had 5 sold out seasons at Edinburgh, and won some awards and stuff, but I love it very much. I am taking a solo show called Villain Era, and that's going to be at the Gilded Balloon TV It for the whole run, from the 5th to the 30th of August. And then I'm also bringing 2 free Fringe shows, so one at 8:30 at the West Knit Records, and that is called Bored to Distraction, which is a board game show that I'm doing with a tech wizard sidekick, Ali Haig. And then I'm also doing, I'm hosting Get Your Geek On, which is being produced by RGB Monster, and that's a mixed bill lineup nerd culture show at 3:45, where the audience plays against the comedians on stage in a sort of nerdy trivia rounds, and so 2 of them are very interactive and on the Laughing Horse Free Fringe, and the other one is a solo show, still very nerdy, all about villainous women and how I have learned from them to give up being a good girl, and it's lots of other layers which I'm desperately trying to streamline at the moment, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, fantastic. And Gareth?
Hello, my name is Gareth Gwynn. I'm primarily a comedy writer. I've worked as a comedy writer for about 18 years on TV and radio shows, and I am going up to Edinburgh this time with my first solo show. I've been in sketch shows years ago, but this is the first time I've done a solo show. It's called Cyril. It's all about my great-grandfather, and it's all about the set of events that led to me having to research my great-grandfather's life. And I'm doing it at the Gilded Balloon at 1 p.m. for the whole month, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a bit of a departure for me, I guess, because, like I say, I am primarily a writer, radio presenter, and producer. So this has been a bit of a leap.
Yes. And I know you took it as a work in progress for a few days last year.
Yes,
so yeah,
I did.
And actually in a hotel. I mean, what's the kind of vibe about
what a
performing in a hotel?
bonkers! That was such a bonkers story. So the way that the show came about is that there were a set of incidents in 2022 where, when I got to the end of them, I went, "That's an Edinburgh show." There was just a set of really peculiar events that happened to me in the immediate aftermath of when my dad died, where I went, "Oh, this is like a real thing I could talk about." And I tried to talk about it on stage briefly in 2023, but I'd not done stand-up in about, by that point, 15 years, something like that. I'd not done stand-up in anger in a very long time. And I did it once. I told the story on stage, and I went, "That's a good story, but you're not a good stand-up." And so I kind of sat with it for a bit. And the first time I had a proper break in my work, which was February 2025, which was the first gap I'd had in my work, genuinely in over a decade, I left a job, which was the last day on a job, and I didn't have anything in the diary for the immediate future. And I booked 3 days at the Camden Fringe, and I booked a bunch of open mic nights. And I just did 3 or 4 open mic spots a week to learn how to hold a microphone again, and to learn, because I'd written for people for, like I say, the best part of 15 years, but I had to go, no, you need to learn how to do this properly. And I'd done bits of performing, but it's a different thing. And I think you have to appreciate it's a different thing. So I did that, and I did these 3 nights at the Camden Fringe with absolutely no intention of going to Edinburgh, no plan to go to Edinburgh, very much thinking this is 2026's problem. And then Harriet Kemsley did a promotional event for Indigo Hotels. And it was one of those things, it happens every year. They're like, a stand-up routine in a hotel room. It's a stand-up routine in an aeroplane or a stand-up routine on a cliff. There's always one of those where... So Indigo Hotels had done one of them because they'd done out one of their rooms quite nicely. And I think they wanted to promote it. Harriet Kemsley done it. And then in the promotional post, there was like a little bit at the bottom that said, we've got space in the hotel bar if anyone's got a show. But this post must have gone up on something like the 7th of August. So I was like, well, how many people are going to have a show literally ready to go? But I did have a show because I'd done my 3 nights at the Camden Fringe. Each night I had tweaked it and altered it. And I did it with an auto cue. I used my laptop as an auto cue. And I'd recorded it. So I sent them a recording. And they went, yeah, if you can get up here, and they gave me the date, then you can do a week in the hotel bar. So I had 6 days to prepare for the Edinburgh Fringe. I wasn't in the brochure. And I was in a funny spot. Like you're not in the main bit of town. So when I had to print a load of flyers and then go to people, and it's over there. But it was really good fun. Not least because I got to stay in the hotel, which is like the biggest hurdle to Edinburgh is where you stay. And I was staying in a hotel, and I had a fried breakfast every day, and my blood pressure is an issue, and so I was having a whale of a time. But it was incredibly intense because I just had to. I messaged everyone I knew who would let me do spots. So there's a night in Edinburgh called Comedy Sheep for Welsh acts, and I think I did that. Did I do that 2 or 3 times? I did ACMS, just like, please, let's get people over to this thing. But it was one of those things, like the Camden Fringe, 3 days in a row, and then doing that 5 days in a row, you just rapidly beat it into shape. So at that point, I was still reading it off a screen. It was still felt very... I mean, the whole show is deliberately lo-fi, but it was still rough and ready. But it was doing that made me go, this is a thing. And the other thing was, because it was literally like, you've got 6 days to prepare. So by the end, by day 5 of it, I had like an audience of like 12 or 13 in, which was fantastic. But I did have the day where I had only 1 person in. And in some ways, I was quite glad that day had arrived. I was like, great, now we're going to see if this works. And I think if it had been a show that was just it is just gags for an hour. Let's not muck around. There's a lot of gags in it. But it's a story. It's a story where every other sentence is a joke. And fundamentally, isn't that what stand-up is? But I think what I tried to do is when there's 1 person there, you're telling it in a different way. You're telling it like you're literally telling someone in a pub, this is what my 2022 was like. And that made me go, this is going to be okay. Because fundamentally, it is an engaging enough story that you can just say to people, listen to what happened. And it worked. So weirdly, that was like a real moment where I went, yeah, this works. But that was me doing Edinburgh in a hotel. Who stays in a hotel when they do Edinburgh? It's like me and Dar O'Brien. Like it's
So yeah, financially you probably done better than anyone else.
Oh, it was incredible. Yeah. Because I think it was the cost of my train ticket and printing the flyers. Because as well, I was having a breakfast that was lasting me literally all day. So I was absolutely quids in. It was incredible. I loved it. It's the sort of thing I feel like Stuart Lee going like, that's what Edinburgh used to be like, only it was last year.
Fantastic. And so, yes, you've got... I was going to say about Gareth, he's only taken 1 day off, and I'm kind of talking to people who some are going all the way through, some are religiously taking Monday off. And I was going to say 1 day. Well, that's kind of hard work, but you're doing 3 shows a day. Why? I'm taking 1 day off of the solo show, and
I'm doing. I'm taking Mondays off from the 8:30 p.m. show, and then I'm taking Tuesdays off of the hosting of their 3:45 show. Why am I doing 3 shows? My finances on your podcast, Making Creativity Pay. So I really wanted to do a full run. I haven't done a full run. Like I've had really great short runs of like 10 days and some sold out short runs, but my last full run hasn't been since 2019, so pre-pandemic. And I did this solo show as a couple of work in progress things last year under a different name, and I thought it was going to stick with that name. I've changed the name, and I'm changed the show, tweaked it and stuff. But it did so well, just for like 3 random work in progress performances, and every time I've done it since, it's just been a joy, and every audience has just been so overwhelmingly positive. I was like, no, I really owe it to the show to do a full run, because there are certain things that on a short run you just don't get the privilege of, like the reviewers, if you've only got 10 days, then it really does lower your chance of your probability of getting reviewed. The industry, and I really believe in this show, so I was like, I'm gonna properly go for it, roll the dice, do the whole run. And that costs money. And I have also done some short runs on the Free Fringe in the last couple of years, and I've had such a ball doing them that I was like, well, I also have these other shows that I'm working on. I've kind of gotten into the stage post-pandemic of working on about 3 or 4 different projects at the same time. And this 8:30 p.m, the Board Distraction board game show where the audience plays in teams, it's so silly. And I was booked to do it for UK Games Expo. So it was created for UK Games Expo that happened in May. Went down a storm there and had a brilliant time. And I was creating it with somebody else who is as neurodivergent and very hyper-achieving as neurodivergent as I am. So we just very quickly got this show together and had a ball creating it together. So I was like, right, we may as well pop it on the Free Fringe because I think it could do really well. And it's a different financial kind of model. And then I'd also approached, the last couple of years, RGB Monster about doing something with them, because I do a lot of nerd culture shows at Comic-Cons and UK Games Expo, EasterCon, Dragon Meet. I'm this weekend going to Fantasy Forest Festival, which is in a castle grounds, and I'm performing 3 different shows there. And yeah, it's that sort of nerd culture mixed bill lineup thing where firstly you get the opportunity to meet lovely acts that I know and love, and also acts that are new that I miss doing that at Edinburgh quite a lot as well. So there's that. There's also the chance to, since I've got so much material on nerd culture, I can throw it all into this one. And those 2 that are on the Free Fringe, I'm very much hoping will support the one that isn't on the Free Fringe, because that one is going to cost it. Is going to cost it the most. But I really believe in all of them for different reasons in different markets, so yeah, that's why I also, in the last few years doing the short runs, it wasn't a FOMO, there wasn't a fear of missing out as such, because I was doing loads of spots all over the place. But there's something in me that's gone, okay, I know I can do multiple shows on short runs. Can I do multiple shows of a long run? I know I've done one show on a full run before with producers. Can I survive? And I suppose I want to throw myself in at the extreme experiences of Edinburgh. Maybe is there a way of doing extreme Edinburgh? Yeah, maybe this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, and so 2 of the shows then, like you say, are non-ticketed. So
yes.
Everything's then on the bucket speech.
Yes.
But I'd imagine you've got a reasonable amount of experience in that. I mean, for anyone kind of listening who's going to be doing it for the first time, I mean, what kind of things would you say? Is it blackmail? Is it kind of that kind of emotional blackmail and those kind of things?
I was going to lead with the constructive things, but let's start with what not to do. I would 100% warn people that not to blackmail, not to don't stand in front of the door and not let them leave unless they give you something. I definitely think that I've heard of some comedians who do that, and it's not what the spirit of the Free Fringe is about. The spirit of the Free Fringe, and I think the what to do's are to really let them know, to be completely honest with them. The spirit of the Free Fringe is, if you have a bit more money, if you have a higher income, the idea is maybe you could give a bit more to then subsidize the people who can't afford to give as much, but they would love to. There's also there's other types of currency. Let them know that if you really genuinely don't have a lot of money to spare at the moment, then please give whatever you can. And there's this extra currency of social media follows and saying lovely things on social media, and word of mouth spreading, which won't cost you anything, but it will really help probably draw in. And if you can spread the word of mouth to very rich people, that would be really helpful. Rich and generous people, that would be the big thing. And a big top tip that I need to remind myself is to not just leave it to the end of the show. Mention it at the top. Mention it maybe delicately, just to remind them during the show, and then at the end, really do make sure you allow time in your show to let them know. No guilt tripping, no pity party. Just, this is the model. This is a different model, a different way of doing the Fringe, and it does rely on you guys. For the Get Your Geek On Mixed Bill lineup show, we'll be paying the acts. I get paid after all the acts, all the technicians, all the flyerers, and the producers have covered their costs. So I'm really hoping people are very generous with that. But yeah, I think making sure that you repeat it, that you're polite, that you can find a fun way to make it like a bucket speech that's tailored to your show specifically. Like, I've been enjoying getting creative with that. And then, practically speaking, make sure you have help taking the payments at the end, because if you've got a venue where people are queuing up, you need to have some sort of contingencies to mean they can leave quickly and give you the money they want to give you as fast as possible, so that the next act can get in. Make sure your sum up is charged and your phone is charged, and definitely have a sum up, and definitely also have a bucket. And yeah, I mean, I will have badges as well, so that will be a reward for anybody who does donate over £5. They will get a badge in return. So that's another that is bribery, possibly, actually, to come back to your original point.
Well, no, bribery's fine. Blackmail is probably a bit too far.
You know what? This has reminded me. So in 2010, I did a sketch show with Rob Causey and Carrie Quinlan, and that was on the Free Fringe. And that during that month, I walked so much that I actually put holes in my shoes. So I had to buy shoes in Edinburgh during the Fringe, but it meant I had a pair of shoes with holes in. I could physically show the audience to go, look, I need money. I have actual holes in my shoes. So that definitely formed part of my bucket speech for the final week.
Yeah, for me, it's leaning on the nerd culture thing. I think that there are very different types of nerds. There are nerds who really studied hard, got into maths, and have really high-paid jobs now. Though, if you're that kind of nerd, please.
This guy without the high-paid job.
And then there's the nerds like us who, we really enjoyed being nerds, but unfortunately we've chosen to nerd out about an industry that is completely not high paid. So it's totally fine. You're all welcome here, but maybe if you're earning a little bit more, then it would be lovely if you could help those of us who haven't landed those jobs in tech sales.
I'm cursed to have a maths degree, so I know how little we're getting paid. As a percentage of GDP.
Gareth's actually coming to do some of the Mixed Bill lineup shows as well, so I'm really looking forward to hearing your Welsh poetry, and maybe do some stuff about maths as well.
Do you know? Yeah, I have thought. I've never really used the maths thing, and a few people have said, "You've never used the maths thing in comedy," and I'm like, "Oh, I should." So maybe, who knows? Maybe I will.
I've also seen Gareth's show, and it's I've seen it a couple of times now, and it is awesome. It really is lovely.
Thank you.
I think the way I described it was it's the perfect 1 p.m. show, because it's a great hangover show. It's so funny, and it's also very cozy, and so you come out like with an emotional reset. It's brilliant.
I am quite happy. I think the perfect show to watch with a hangover. I'm like bang up for that as a promotional line. I really am. Yes.
But whether it's the perfect show to perform with a hangover, I don't know.
Yes, I will not be having a hangover, and I refer you to the comments on my blood pressure earlier. I haven't seen Juliette's show in a bit, because I saw it like ages and ages and ages ago. But I've been enjoying the the repositioning of Juliette Burton as a stand-up, and I think the sort of nerd geek culture stuff is amazing. Because I saw the interactive show that you did last year, and that was genuinely superb.
Thank you.
And because I saw it was really lively the night I saw it. It was really good fun.
Yeah,
So,
I love the nerd culture because I used to do a lot of stuff about with mental health, and I have got a theatre project that I'm working on for later this year and next year, that is going to swing right back to that. But doing the nerd culture stuff has just been like it's been such a respite. I've loved it. And I'm going to continue doing it because it's better for my mental health in many ways. Yeah.
also, I will say, like, I'm not a Marvel guy, but there's still absolutely loads you can get from it, even because it is a broad geeky church. There's something for everyone.
I've had someone at my last preview come up to me and say I was really worried because I'm not a nerd and I don't know any of this stuff. But I understood everything and I laughed loads, and like I think I'm very conscious of it has to be inclusive. It can't be oh, look how much I know. It has to be come join my world.
Yeah.
And so I know, Juliette, you've done some work with Gareth, on the show and kind of that kind of stuff. I mean, I always find that interesting. You have a solo show. It's about you and your life, and then you have outside eyes and kind of outside work in it. And how easy? I'm sure you'll say, Juliette, makes it incredibly easy. But how easy is it to take, in the nicest way, criticism, in the proper sense of it, about a show? So for Gareth first, how easy is it to kind of deal with it, and Juliette, kind of how you go about that?
Is this in terms of when I work with Juliette and sort of like how I feed back to Juliette what I think, or is this
more
myself?
How you deal with Juliette's kind of constructive criticism?
Oh, so do you know what I think? So in terms of like how I receive criticism generally, I think there are a couple of things. I did a job for 2009-2010, which was the BBC bursary, where you work in-house for the BBC. And you write jokes for all sorts of things. So News Quiz, Now Show, Newsjack were the big ones. But you could just it's 4 days a week. You just put on whatever show needs an additional writer. And you just churn out jokes. And it turns you into an absolute machine in terms of joke writing. So you come out of that year with sort of the wind in your sails a bit and a real confidence that you can write jokes if you're backed into a corner. And one of the things that's really great about it, and I think I've noticed in all the people I know who've done that or jobs like it, is that you are not afraid that you won't be able to think of something else. So if something isn't working or someone has an issue with something, I think it puts you in a situation to go, I'm not going to be so precious about this that I'm going to hang on to it because of some like sort of great reason. It gives you the confidence to drop it and know you can come up with something else. And I think then you take that into doing sketches, and then you take that into doing sitcoms, which is what I have mainly done really in the 2010s, is worked on sketches and sitcoms. And so if there is a problem, you're not sort of like rallying round a thing and the producer's like, I don't think that's working. Or, like that's it. Like if it's something that's in some way very important that you want to defend, that's fine. But if it's just not funny enough, then I think you can go, fine, I'll ditch it and I will think of something else. I think it gives you that little bit of confidence. And so what I would like to think is that when I've been doing the show and people have given me any feedback, I think I've always been in a position where, if it's not working or someone's got an issue with something, I am pretty confident to sack it off and come up with something else to solve that bit of the journey. I think it is interesting that the opening, it's almost like when I thought of the show, I thought of doing the show and I thought of the opening joke on the same day. And I went, I know what the show is and I know exactly how it will start. And it never, ever, ever worked. And it's this weird thing where I was like, that's odd, because I thought that was an absolute banker as a sort of thing to do. So I wasn't so, that is so tied to the concept of the show that I wasn't afraid to ditch it. So I would like to think that I have that confidence that if someone says something, I now am in a position where I can go, I will be able to think of something to get around this problem. And the other thing that I think I've learnt over the years, this is from years doing sitcoms, is if somebody says there is an issue with that bit, you have to separate the thought on where the problem is with thought of what the problem is, because those are two different things. And what often happens is people will go, oh, that bit isn't working, or I don't like this bit, something like that. And sometimes the problem isn't the bit they've pointed out. The problem is 3 or 4 pages earlier, and it is the setup into whatever that bit is. So I think what you have to do is you sometimes have to receive the feedback, appreciate that that is from someone who probably doesn't quite know how the show has been physically structured, and go, but you can't dismiss it. You absolutely can't dismiss it, because there is a problem, and the problem is there. And the way I describe it to people is that is the point at which they can smell the smell, but that might not be where the smell is coming from. And I think that is the best way to sort of deal with that sort of criticism. I will say, though, that after I did Glasgow, Juliette sent me a 5-minute voice note with her thoughts about it, and every single one of them was absolutely bang on. And I implemented, literally for the next gig, every single point that Juliette said. I implemented, like, without doubt. They were all absolutely bang on the money. And as I remember listening to it and kind of going like, yep, that is right. That needs something. Yep. So and actually I think that's probably quite a good example, that when Juliette left the note, because you'd obviously got the show and got the like premise of the show and what was doing, every single thing that you were pointing out was all in service to, oh, you are trying to do this with this show, and these are the things that will help it get over the line. So it was good. I think I made every one of those changes.
Thank you, love. I mean, I have a bit of a rule when I give feedback of like checking in with the person whether they want it. I think that's...
Oh, yeah. Because actually, I've noticed comics are quite good at that now. I think they go, do you want my thoughts?
Yeah.
And I'll always say yes. And if they're wrong, then there we go.
Yeah, so for me, so I've worked with Gareth for years, because I like working with other people. I tend to be quite verbal in the way that I come up with ideas, and then I sort of retreat a little bit into myself, and then I like to share it with people that I trust. And Gareth, I love Gareth's feedback. It's because, again, like, I think getting the voice from which you're speaking, like getting where the show is coming from, what it is you're trying to achieve, what the comedic voice is. That's kind of key. And I have had feedback very recently that I let's put it this way, somebody else who was in the audience who came up to me after these 2 people had sort of been with me for a while, and they said, are you okay? Like, you look like you were being bombarded. And that was somebody else's outside interpretation. I'm not going to say that was entirely wrong of how it felt. And that, I think that was kind of a reminder of a lot of what Gareth has said, actually, that the firstly, is it invited feedback? Is it solicited feedback? Is it and how much of that is an indication that something else is wrong from what it is they're actually saying? Like, that they've clearly, the smell thing is a great analogy. This one was one of those where it's like, yes, I see that there is something that I need to solve, but what you are telling me to do to solve it is not the solution to the problem. And also, like, understanding what the heart of the show is, like, what made me want to sit down and write this particular show? Like, what is it that I am trying to say? What is it with each section of the show? What is it trying to do? Like, where is it trying to take us? What is the purpose of it? And most importantly, like, if there are certain sections of the show that I can give myself permission. This doesn't have to be funny, but as Gareth said earlier, every other sentence is a joke. You do need the joke at some point to come in. So I loved what you said as well, Gareth, about having the confidence that you can come up with something else. I think that might have been something I've learned. I used to kind of cling on for dear life to the jokes that once upon a time it was the best joke, and it was
Yeah.
like a life raft, like I didn't have faith in myself that I could swim without it.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I think by doing way more, I've been on the circuit now for a few years, rather than just doing solo shows at festivals. And doing that has taught me so much of like being in the room, playing, and trusting yourself that you've got either this back catalogue of things to pull from, or you just know the subject, your people, your tribe, that there's going to be something fun coming out of it. And recently in the structure of the show, there's been there was some feedback where I realized that there was a problem, but it wasn't the solution that they were offering. I've been finding the solution and having fun with playing around with how I'm phrasing what it is to solve that as well, is having faith that you know what it is that you're trying to say without trying to come at it from externally trying to solve the problem. Like having faith that you do know the funny and know the pathway, the succinct brevity of what it is you're trying to get across to the audience, backed by some comedy is fantastic. So yeah, I think feedback is very valuable. Feedback from reviews is interesting. I do like reading reviews. I even if they're not massively complimentary, I enjoy reading them as long as the timing, as long as I time myself of when it is that I choose to engage. Like, do I have the capacity? Am I about to get on stage? Never read a review before you get on stage. Never, ever, ever do that. Yeah.
I know a quite famous comic who told me that what they do is they don't look at the reviews throughout the whole of the Fringe, and then they literally leave it to like mid to late October.
Interesting, yeah.
And then they buy a bottle of wine and they read them all in a night.
That's not bad. Maybe I should try that.
It's quite funny. I thought that was quite a good way to tackle it.
I tend to sometimes, like, I need to be aware of my emotional capacity, because it's not going to be the same for me every single day, right?
Yeah.
If you get into the like third week and you're exhausted and you've got Fringe flu, maybe be cautious of whether you read the reviews or not. And so I do kind of say to a couple of people, like, are you available to just come and sit with me and read it together, so that we can like trusted friends, like people who've been with me the whole time. And then
do they read it out loud to you? So they like read it in a jaunty way, even if it's bad.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done it where I've asked them, like, do you mind reading it and just pulling the quotes for me? Like, that's like,
that's good.
No, I think the times I like it the best is when I'm sitting with somebody, one of us is reading it, we can stop and pause and sort of reflect on the positives, the negatives. They're like, oh, that's lovely, or that's is that something I need to sit with? How can I improve? But I don't think that I action anything like, say if a review's giving me some constructive feedback, I wouldn't action it in the midst of the run. Like, it's useful for future stuff, and it's definitely useful to do the pull quotes if there's something that you can sell it to people. It's all part of the marketing of it, is what's new and shiny and nice to say. But yeah, the constructive feedback, I definitely need time to sort of sit and ponder and process, churn around.
Yeah, that's interesting, because this is kind of new to me, really. Certainly as a solo stand-up, this will be the first time I've ever put myself out like that. I've had like shows I've written get reviewed, or been in on the radio or TV. That's happened, but this is the first time. And I think the difference is, like, if you do a radio show and it goes out, I'm not going to go and do it again tomorrow and can take that on board. I think that's the big difference. It's the fact that if you do something and people don't like it, the difference with a live show is you've got to get up and do it the next day. Yeah. I think that's like the big difference. Whereas if someone doesn't like a TV show or radio show, you're like, well, fine, it's out now. I can't take that back.
I love the audience reviews. Like, the audience reviews, I really pay attention to massively, because those are people who have no skin in the game. They don't have to publish a review. They want to contribute. And I think audience reviews are very different from TikTok comments. Like there's in there. I think it's a weird one where it's like reviewers are wonderful and they hopefully know the industry and they know what they're talking about. But are they the right reviewer for your show? Like, is that the demographic that you are targeting? We don't know. Whereas the audience reviews, those are the demographic that's the person that chose out of everything to come and see your show. So the marketing worked on them. So what is it that they think?
That's so interesting, because there was that trend. I think it's still about a bit, but there was certainly a trend on radio advertising where like there would be a movie, and then rather than give the reviews of the press, it would be made up of people leaving the cinema going, I thought this was brilliant, I thought this was brilliant. And I think the first time they did it, it was actually for a film that I don't think had been brilliantly reviewed, but that the public loved. And I think they went, well, let's just do it like this. But then I think that just became a really good way of selling a film. There were films that just did that. That's what they did for their adverts, because it's actually quite nice to hear someone come out and go like, that was absolutely brilliant. You know, I think there is something in that. I suppose you got to win them all, haven't you? You got to get everyone on board. There's no point having a show that like two reviewers like, and the audience are like, this is rubbish. You got to have. I think you got to play to all markets, haven't you?
I love with your first solo show, Gareth, that you are aiming to please everyone. That is great.
Yeah, that's the goal. No, do you know what? Do you know who I'm aiming to please? I will tell you this. The last 3 previews, I've had one of my dad's brothers or sisters in to everyone. And it has been a matter of, like, it is lovely that the rest of you came. But I need that woman in row 2 to find this very funny. Because otherwise I'm in trouble. There has been, that's actually been, in terms of, to be honest, I was thinking this the other day. It was the first one of my dad's siblings to see it. Was my dad's sister saw it in Cardiff. And it finished, and she came. It's because the show's about my great-grandfather, and she came up to me at the end, and she went, "You have absolutely nailed him." And I was like, brilliant. I sort of at that point went, I kind of now don't care what happens, because the fact that the family have gone, yeah, you have got him. He was like that, and that was quite nice. In fact, exactly what it was. You've absolutely got him. I was terrified of him, and I was like, great. So I feel like that in terms of reviews, I'm like, that's the one that really mattered in a weird way, I guess.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, like, because it's not a traumatic show. It's easy.
No, but I think, you know, he's an intimidating guy. You know what I think, and I think she was like that.
You're talking about somebody who's incredibly intimidating, but the way that you deliver it is delightful.
Yeah, I decided very early on, this is not a show where I do an impression of him. God, that would be awful. I actually considered starting the show by going, hello, I'm Cyril, and I'm like, don't worry, I'm not going to do that to you for an hour.
And in terms of getting reviewers in, because I'm currently on the media list for Fringe, and I've got like about 400 emails of people saying, you know, come to my show.
It's your first year on the media list, aren't you?
Yes.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that's, you dropped me a message about that. Yes.
I emailed you and you were like, I'm drowning. And I was like,
Yeah, I think that was when it was like, about 100 emails, and now it's like 400. And, you know, there is so much good stuff. And, you know, I'm just kind of doing this for, I certainly wouldn't dream of kind of reviewing anyone's show other than really liked it or quite liked it. You know, that's probably my 2 states. So, you know, or don't say anything at all. You know, but in terms of getting a reviewer in, you know, what are the key kind of things, you know, in terms of that? It's a bit like flyering in that you maybe have 30 seconds to kind of get someone's interest, but you actually have to kind of physically get them into a room as well. So it's even harder.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been doing it for a few years, so I can give you what I think I've learned, but it's always changing as well.
Before Juliette gets into this, I'm just going to quickly say, this is such a closed book to me that Juliette has taken on helping me with this, and I have completely outsourced this to Juliette. And in the nature of like making creativity pay, because people charge a lot for PR and for press, and literally this is a job, like a lot of my friends, I would talk to them about it, and they have like wholly outsourced it to a private company. They've just gone, I'm going to give you a lot of money and you're going to deal with that. So because Juliette has so much experience on this, we've done a skill swap kind of thing. So Juliette has taken on trying to get people into my show, and I will help her with her show, and I'm going to do flyering, and so basically, just in a nod to like the whole way that I think your podcast works, that's how we're dealing with some of the insane costs associated with Edinburgh. So what I'm going to say is I'm now going to be very quiet, because whatever Juliette says about how you sell a show, like that is also the same for me, because I have not sent an email. This has all been Juliette.
I mean, I think I'm glad you brought that up, actually, Gareth, because it's like I just think there could be more of this at the Fringe, the skill swapping aspect. Like a big part for me is that I know Gareth, I know your show, I love your show. So when I'm up there, we are at completely different times as well. I want to fly. I want to recommend his show, because if I'm out flyering at that time, say like midday, I recommend his show to somebody and they go see it and they love it and they remember that I also mentioned that I had shows, then that just, it's all like a big beautiful circle of joy that, like, yeah, if they start their day with Gareth and then they come along to my Free Fringe mixed bill at he'll come out of Gareth at 2:00, my 3:45 show, and then you come out of that and then you join me at my 6:30 solo show, and then you can come join me at my 8:30 show, and that's 4 shows, 2 of which will pay what you want. It's a great Fringe day, you know. But genuinely, I just think that like that kind of I was about to say symbiosis. Do I mean that? The kind of the reciprocal energy of like of integrity. I think that people pick that up at the Fringe, and I don't think I hope that doesn't change, because a lot of other things have changed over the years that I've been doing it, and that one I feel like people can smell a rat, and they can smell somebody who doesn't really believe in what it is that they're selling, and I think that's why you sort of gravitate, you get the certain demographics, certain people start to follow certain careers, because it's the integrity of it. So to get reviewers in, which was the question. Yeah, so I have had in previous years, I've worked with PRs. My full disclosure is that I used to be a journalist, and my very first trip to Edinburgh Fringe was as a reviewer, and it was way back in 2005, and I was reviewing, in inverted commas, for my newspaper, a local newspaper that I was on the arts. I was the arts correspondent for, back when they had arts correspondents for a local newspaper. I tended to work on the assumption of if I didn't love it, I wouldn't say that I hated it in the review. I would just give it fewer stars and try to focus on any positive thing that I could say, which did tend to mean that I would give lots of lovely positive reviews. I trained as a journalist at university. I did a university course on it, and part of that was PR. It was learning press releases, it was learning how to create that, and I did work in a couple of PR firms, but for about a week at a time, because I couldn't stay in that world that long. I think it's just the autism and ADHD in me, that if I'm doing something that doesn't feel 100% like I believe in it, then I can't do it well. So what I do with Edinburgh Fringe is start getting the press release together as early as possible. So I mean, if it was the start of the year, that would have been great. I think around March, April, I have to really nail it and get it ready. Then I have my previous year's lists of press contacts that I keep, and absolutely, that was the first round that I emailed, was people, I think I was aiming to do it end of April, but I think I ended up doing it in May, was the previous year's lists, and absolutely, there's obviously going to be people who email me back saying, I'm not in Edinburgh this year, I don't know why you're contacting me. They didn't actually put it that bluntly. But there was a couple of people that were like, sadly this year I can't, but please do email me again next year about next year's show. And I was thinking, I really hope I can afford next year's show. And yeah, like it's that sort of community, that the different Venn diagrams of the communities, and one community is the reviewers, the press. And But reaching out as early as possible in May, just to say hey, and not being like pestering, because you're not going to hear from everybody immediately. You've got 100 emails a day pretty much, and don't want to overwhelm people, but also trying to find the hook, or the thing that makes it sellable, like a newsworthy. Is there something that is actually in 2026? Why is this the show, and why is this the person that you should be caring about? For Gareth, the sellability has been a comedy writer for, I've forgotten whether I'm allowed to swear, for ages, for eons, and is extremely talented, has been doing it for ages, and now is doing first ever solo show. You know that it's going to be at least fantastic. Like, I also put in my extra personal point of view of, I have seen it, I think it's brilliant. I let loads of them know that I thought it was a perfect hangover show. The perfect emotion.
I'm just going to get hammered journalists for a month, aren't I? Just like a load of people looking wrecked in the front row.
Hey, as long as they give you some good reviews, I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're still...
I wasn't sick. 5 stars.
Maybe you should hand out like some bacon on the way in, and everything.
That's such a funny idea. Yeah, that's the whole marketing strategy.
Yeah, just give people hangover cures. So for me, it was I tried to lead just with my solo show, because I'm aware, as we began, I've got my multiple different shows, and it would be easy to overwhelm people. So I was mainly focusing on Villain Era, which is the Gilded Balloon solo show, and the sellability, I think, for that is that I'm a former good girl who's given up being good, and I've learned it from all these fictional villainous women, and I think in 2026 a lot of women are kind of fed up with being nice. So yeah, that was kind of where I went with that, as well as the nerd culture aspect as well. And then I plugged away. So I left it, I think, about 3 weeks until I did follow-up emails. I did another round when they released the 2026 media list, which helpfully for me had a metric ton of new contacts, which was just delightful to go through all over again. But I sat there, it was me late in the evening after I'd finished my other work, like to earn actual rent, and sat there with a glass of wine and just gradually made my way through it, and made sure that I tend to make it as personable as possible, so without driving myself insane. I can't research everybody's latest article and compliment them on it, but I can make sure that people who I do know that I've had previous contact with, that there's some sort of pre-existing connection, I contact them and make it personal about how we know each other and when our last interaction was, and that tends to work, especially with the old school people who are still out there and they're still going and they know their Edinburgh Fringes, and then with the newer people, making sure that I have at least a vague understanding of where they're coming from, what they're interested in covering, and making sure I don't waste my time or theirs. If they've said in the spreadsheet that they're not interested in comedy, there's not much point in me contacting them. So just respecting those boundaries, and getting them in. It's the follow-ups, carefully timed follow-ups. So I will be doing another one in the next week or so, just to remind people. I've already got a few requests for reviewers coming in for both my show and Gareth's show. And then, I think when we're up there, making sure that I remember to get to pre-check that all the comps are ready for everybody who's requested one, and being very, very friendly to every reviewer, because they are equally as exhausted and overstretched as everybody else in the ecosystem of Edinburgh Fringe. So, I have a soft spot for reviewers. Not just the ones who give me good reviews.
Sorry. So yes, you're both on a Gilded Balloon. I mean, how important was that as a choice? It's always these kind of things that there's so many shows that if you go with some of the big places, that almost tells people in advance that you are at a certain level, that you've got a certain guarantee. So whether that's Monkey Barrel, Gilded Balloon, those kind of things. I mean, was that a big thing for you?
Shall I go first?
Yeah, I remember chatting with you about it way back.
Yeah. So, I think... So, the last time I did the Fringe in a show that I was in for the whole month, it was... I did it on the Free Fringe, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I really liked it. And I there were three of us in the show. We got the money and split the money, and it all worked out quite well. And I have a lot of fondness for that business model, and I do think that business model works. So I'm all for it. And so when I started to think about doing this, that was definitely on the table as an option. But the reason I ended up, and it was quite important for me, I think, that I went in the end for a paid venue, for the simple reason that this isn't, I don't know what I'm going to do after this. In terms of, will I do another stand-up show? I don't know. When I went into this, I actually thought I wouldn't. And this really was, for me, a bit of a one-shot deal, in the sense that I normally write sitcoms, I produce and present like silly radio documentaries and features and things like that. That is what I do. This story has to happen live. I really felt like there's not a version of this that's a sitcom. There's not a version of this that's a radio show. This is a live show. And it's partly because Cyril was a live performer where he did his poetry. So there's that. So when I was thinking about doing it, the story had to be told live. It felt like I had to learn stand-up to do it. I don't know if I'm going to do another one, so I felt like if I'm going to do it, let's actually go all in and do it in a paid venue and do it in an environment where I can control that much of it. And so it was all part of it, really. And I think the thing that sort of swung me towards doing it like that was, this isn't a thing I'm going to do regularly. This is a one-shot deal. So I think it was that. Now I've done it, or certainly I've been doing the stand-up for a bit. Tell you what, I enjoy stand-up a lot more in my 40s than I ever did in my 20s. I never got the hang of it in my 20s, and as soon as I started getting offered writing work, I jumped to that so fast. Partly because I was doing a lot on breakfast radio, which really rules out doing stand-up. But yeah, that's I have enjoyed it a lot more than I expected, and I can imagine doing something in the future. But I'm still very pleased that this is the approach that I took. That I think for the show that I'm doing, I think it's a good way to do. And I think that's what it's all about, really. Is it's going like, right, what's the best way to show this show off? And I felt like for this one, the Gilded Balloon felt like the right place. I was really, when they gave me off, I was very pleased. I remember being absolutely thrilled. So yeah, that's me, I would say.
For me, I love the Gilded Balloon. They were the first ones that gave me a chance in 2013, when I think the other venues I did apply to, and I didn't hear back from them. I love the fact that they are female run by Karen and Katie. They're very, very supportive of me, and I worked really hard and had the sold out runs at Gilded, and so while I have the other two shows on Laughing Horse Free Fringe, at Westnit Records, which is just underneath the Counting House, that was important for me to be near to the Gilded Balloon, so that I'm not exhausting myself with running around. I'm going to know one street very, very well by the end. But yeah, I think that to do this show justice, like I think that this is my funniest, silliest, sexiest show that I've ever done. And I wanted it to get the chance to get the support from both front of house, from the box office team, and to be taken as seriously as I think it deserves to be taken. I'm thrilled that TVIT's back, so I'm going to be in TVIT again for the first time since 2023, and that was my last sold out run year. So who knows, maybe I'll have a successful year. I really hope so, because the show deserves it. I also like the fact that I'm in the Turret, which for a show called Villain Era, the Turret feels
That's really funny.
It's good, isn't it? I didn't even realize that until like a couple of weeks ago. I was just like, oh yeah. I think that the other shows that I'm doing on the Laughing Horse Free Fringe also are they're absolutely banging and brilliant and chaotic and all over the place, and I think that really suits the Laughing Horse stuff. I think having free Fringe shows is an important balance, the yin and yang of the Fringe. I'm going to use the word ecosystem again. And you can see some absolutely phenomenal shows on the Free Fringe. It's just a different model. Being able to do it at Gilded, though, I think it helps me to know that I have that support from them, even from as much as I have some merch. And this year is going to be the first year I have it at the box office, where they will have to take a cut of the income. but I have the support to know that that merch will be safe, it will be there, somebody will be helping me, it's somewhere to direct people to. I think that I want to pick up on something that Gareth mentioned about that Cyril has to be a live show. It's not a sitcom. It's not a this. It's not a that. Um, I I will be doing further shows. I'm currently writing the shows for 2027 because I've just got too many ideas and I'm very excited. There's like this one was born out of the end of a previous show that I did. So it's sort of there was a previous show sort of opened up some more questions about a slightly different tangent of that show, which became this show, which is even better in my opinion than that previous show. And then this show is now there's like a chunk of it where I'm like, I have so much more to say about that spins off of that particular topic. So that's the next comedy show, as well as I've got an Arts Council supported theatre show that I mentioned earlier, that is all about what it's like to live on the margins of society, and like it's about mental health, mental illness, and craziness. What's considered sane, what's considered insane, and that one's completely different and is much more theatrical and weird and wonderful. I love live shows, and I think that in this day and age post pandemic, I'm such an unhealthy advocate. Like I am obsessed with championing the fact that live experiences can transform and change society on a personal level, on a societal level, on a worldwide global level. And I think that we've something's broken slightly since the pandemic of us having to completely retreat from all of that and separate during the pandemic to not be able to see anybody's smiles and laughter and faces with the masks. And I think coming back post pandemic, people are still nervous and they're still trying to trust, and I think that it's vital for our for a political standpoint that we need to be together, to be organized together, to have collective experiences. Mental health research shows that collective experiences like live events do promote better well-being long term, as well as just being able to come together to have discussions that perhaps we like online it becomes way more polarized too quickly, whereas if you're in a theatre show and we're all laughing together, you might slightly disagree with something, but you might be able to see it from a new angle in a softer way. So yeah, I just wanted to leap on that because it wasn't the question you asked, Dan. It is something that I just feel so passionately about, and I think Edinburgh Fringe needs to continue to be that, and it can't be priced out of it.
Can I very quickly also add something that Juliette said about how the Gilded Balloon is female-led? The other thing that I think marks the Gilded Balloon out that I think I found quite important with my show is that it is Scottish run.
Yeah.
And my show is incredibly Welsh in the fact that it all happens, and it is about a sort of Welsh culture, and quite a specific element of Welsh culture. And a thing that I have learnt over the years of writing for various companies up and down the country is that there's a really interesting relationship between Wales and Scotland, which is the sense that even though they are different, there is an understanding there. And so I worked on a TV show called Tourist Trap that starred Sally Phillips, and it was set in the Welsh Tourist Board, and it was about the Welsh Tourist Board, and it had an entirely Scottish production team. The comedy unit in Scotland produced it, and it was produced using the model of Scot Squad, which is one of their really big hits up in Scotland, and we used their model of filming and everything. And the thing that I really admired about the comedy unit was that there was an understanding of, they knew that they wouldn't get everything about Wales, but they also knew that there would be things about Wales they wouldn't get, and they were very open to understanding those things. And in Wales, to be blunt, it's the language is the biggest one, because I think sometimes people misunderstand quite the importance and where that sits within our culture. And I was really impressed by that, and I think there is an element of the Gilded Balloon being a Scottish company, whereas like, oh, I think this will be understood in the terms that I'm presenting it in a way that is quite reassuring. Does that make sense?
Yeah. One of the other things I want to mention about Gilded Balloon is they do on their site, so rather than the Ed Fringe site for the tickets, the £2 support the artist. I don't know, Juliette, whether did that make a significant difference?
So far, honestly, hand on heart, I haven't seen a huge amount of people opt into it. But I think that I love that the Gilded Balloon have that alongside a bunch of other efforts to make it more accessible. Like they have the £5 Pink Wednesday, which is when you're supposed to. I'm gonna give you a heads up, Gareth. We're all meant to wear pink on the first Wednesday of the first proper full week.
No one told me this.
The idea is that the Gilded Balloon give £5 tickets for anybody who has a local postcode, and I think that's great. Like you need to make sure it's accessible for everybody. I think the Gilded Balloon they try a lot of different things to try to bring people in, make it more accessible for audience and artists, and I think it's another aspect of in the recent years for me. It's things like Patreon, people joining my Patreon, and at my free Fringe shows, having a QR code where they can scan it to donate directly from their phone, as well as the sum ups and the bucket. I think people being able to join a community to see the behind the scenes and see the creative process throughout the year, that is something that I value massively. And my Patreon community, I'm not like thousands of people. I've got a reasonably humble group, but they are so supportive. And we do regular read-throughs. I do like free behind the scenes sneak peeks in dressing rooms and things. And that sounds more like OnlyFans. You know what I mean with that, I hope. I think that having different ways of people who are really passionate about comedy being able to support you ongoing is also great. I like the £2 deal. I hope that there'll be more people taking it up this year. Support the artist, extra £2.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I always bring up to people is kind of social media and its importance. Interesting enough, Gareth, I was on Instagram this morning. I saw a sponsored ad. I always find that a bit weird.
Did you?
Yeah, I find it annoying that I follow you, but then you have to pay for me to see.
No, that's really interesting. I only set it up at like 11 p.m. last night, so you probably saw the first one. Yeah, I don't know. I am fascinated to see how this works. I don't know, and it's a little bit of a shot in the dark. I feel like this is a bit new to me as well, because for years, social media was a little bit of a kind of thing that I had. And it was quite good for like promoting radio shows I'd done, especially when I was... what I really loved about social media was when I was a regular radio presenter. I used to have a regular show on Radio Wales. It was great for what would be a text in, because you can put the question out there in advance and you can start getting responses before you've even got to the studio. So you knew you had a couple of answers in the tank, and as well as it promoting the show and things like that. So that was all brilliant. But maybe that's because that was the sort of reason I had it. It was very much for like engagement on the regular radio show. And that was very much during the Twitter era. I was on the radio regularly from 2010 to 2017. And I would say that I built a reasonable Twitter following, and that is now in the bin. Because Twitter has really, for those purposes, is now less than useless. I think I have actually now got rid of my Twitter account. They reached a point where I went, I have to call this a day. By 2020, I was barely using it, if I'm honest, and I went very cool on social media, all of it, during that time. And so I personally feel like suddenly going, oh, this is now how tickets are sold in the modern world. I will be honest, I do feel like I am on the back foot in that world, because Twitter was the one that I seem to have any sort of... And I, we're not talking tens of thousands of followers, but I had a couple of thousand followers there that meant that if I did something, that was at least an audience there for it. And so I've had to sort of get involved with Instagram. Very much between ourselves, I don't like Instagram, and I've realised why I don't like Instagram. I don't like the fact that I have to take up everybody's full screen of their phone. Like, I feel like me going, I've got something to say and it's going to take up that much space, to me, that is an imposition. I think that is rude. I think that is like screaming in somewhere. I liked when Twitter, you just took up a little smidgen to go like, hello, I'm on the radio, do you want to have a listen? That's fine. I much preferred that. So, because of that, because I feel like I am on the back foot, I thought, I think I'm going to have to engage in actually paying to do some sort of online advertising to get this out into the world. So, yeah, I set it up last night. We shall see how it goes. I have an idea of the people who would want to see my show. Broadly speaking, I think people who would want to see my show fall into 3 categories. They are people who like the stuff I've done on Radio 4, they are Welsh people, and they are what I call the extended 3-bean salad universe, which is because I've done so much work over the years with like Benjamin Partridge and also with like Ellis and John on 5 Live and things like that. I'm sort of like, I feel like other people who like that world of those would enjoy what I do and would get something from what I do, because I think it's in that existence, as it were. But it's capturing those people. Yeah. And it's like finding those people. And I am interested as to whether there are mechanisms for doing that. Fundamentally, though, like, and this is the thing, like Ben Partridge mentioned my show when I was previewing it on 3-bean salad, and in the next one I did in the Camden Fringe, the guy came up to me and said, "Hi, I just want to say I'm a big fan of 3-bean salad, and I came down because of that." And I was like, this is what works, isn't it? It's like a recommendation like that on a show like that is worth its weight in gold. Will Instagram advertising work? I mean, I can literally tell you the other side of the weekend. I could phone you up and tell you how it's worked. But you must have seen, like joking aside, you would have seen one of the first adverts to go out. Let's see if that... The phrase I'm using all the time is, does anything move the bloody dial? I say that about once a day while trying to do this.
I hope you get more than 1 click, because that was me. So if you only get 1.
Okay, so that's that one accounted for.
Yeah, you've got to do a podcast with everyone who clicks the link. Okay, cool. Yes, I was going to talk about the podcast with Isid. How have you found that, in that, podcasting now is so much more visual?
Oh.
And you kind of, no, we don't want to go down that route.
You could not have asked me this question at a more, is the word auspicious time? I am currently making a documentary for Radio 4, which will be going out later in the year, all about shows that moved from radio to TV.
Okay.
And it's the history of shows that moved from radio to TV. And I must have pitched it to Radio 4 about a year ago, and they said, "Oh yeah, let's do it. We'll do it at the end of this year." So we're making it right now. And what has been fascinating is, in the time between me having the idea and suggesting it and it coming round, I feel like the importance of visualized content has just gone through the roof. Like that, to the point that now the fact that we don't fully visualize our own podcast feels like a statement. Do you know what I mean? Like it's gone from being, oh, well, we could just put up clips and things like that. So we will now and again put up clips from the Zoom call. Deals, as we have ascertained, I'm not great at social media. So Deals, I feel like I deal with everything up to the point the podcast is released, and deals with everything with the promotion of the podcast itself. So she does the clips and things like that. It's not so much a decision to not make it fully visualized as it's kind of like, well, we're just keeping the show going and things like that. What I have, while we work out, I think, how we're going to do it. And what's been interesting is that podcast generally, to sort of to talk to, your, almost like the point of your show, what that podcast has, I think, been very good for us, has been how it has allowed us to do other things. I think it has allowed us to be seen as a pair who can do other things. So thanks to the podcast, Radio Wales got us to do their end of year show. So we did 24 and 25. We did an end of year show. Thanks to the podcast, we got this show on Radio Wales called Scrapbook, which was a sort of like version of our podcast with music. And what was interesting about that is that was filmed because we did it in a BBC studio and clips went out. And it was a bit of a learning lesson for me because they put the clips out and Esset is in shot. She is in the middle of the screen, her face is clear and you can see her. I am always obscured by something, and it looks like, do you remember the mystery guest on Question of Sport, where it would be like, who's this sportsman? And they would have like a golf club in front of their face. That's me on visualized radio. Like, there's a computer monitor like this, and then when it cuts to the other angle, the camera's behind me, and I'm never square in shot. So I think I've got quite a lot to learn about visualized content. But thanks to this Radio 4 show, having discussed radio TV, I have been speaking to people about visualized content, and I have been speaking about the future of it. And I think, without wanting to preempt the lessons of the documentary, I think one of the points that I think has come up is it's very easy for people to say, oh, everything should be visualized. That is then quite expensive. There is a world of difference between making an audio-only podcast and making a fully visualized podcast that actually someone will want to sit and watch all of. I think the thing is about podcasting, I think I'm a radio guy through and through. I was a radio producer before I did any of this, and I was so I sort of saw the podcast boom kind of happen. You know, it's really like working in radio while it was all sort of taking off. So making a podcast, to me, I'm quite lucky that the skill set is all within my jurisdiction, in the sense that I can edit quite quickly because I've always been able to edit and that sort of thing. So I appreciate that means that I've been able to take a lot of the like potential workload of the podcast and just sort of subsume it. It still takes time and it's still effort, but you know, like I realise that I've been quite lucky that there are those sort of barriers to entry. What I have found interesting, as I sort of alluded to earlier, is this idea that I think a podcast has become your shop window now, of like, this is the thing of yours that is always on. So it feels like, especially because like some of the stuff I do for Radio 4, there could be a year between, especially the larger Archive on 4's things that I've done, where I'll maybe make one a year. It's almost like in the gaps, there's a podcast every fortnight. You know, it's really like, so that there's always something sort of going on. And I think we've entered a really weird space now in comedy with podcasts, which is, there was the like, oh, everyone's got a podcast. You know what I mean? Everyone sort of rolls their eyes because everyone got a podcast. And I think the truth of the matter is, I think it might now be part of the job. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like, to be a stand-up, I think you might need a podcast. Like, I'm starting to think that the two things are not separate. Funnily enough, we had Stuart Goldsmith on our show as a guest on the podcast. And I asked him, what's the difference between stand-ups? Because Stuart's the same age as me. You know, in our early 40s, stand-ups of that age and stand-ups in their early 20s. I said, like, does anything separate the two? And Stuart gave this great answer, which was along the lines of, the people of our age think of the job as stand-up, and then doing your online clips and your TikTok clips and your Instagram clips and your podcast as extra. The people in there who are 21, 22, that is the job. The job is stand-up, TikTok, podcast. It's all a lump. And I think that is the way things are going. I do think that. The other thing I will recommend, to talk to exactly to what Juliette says, because I agree with so much of what she said about the algorithm and fighting the algorithm. I cannot recommend enough. There's a podcast called Good Ones, which is an American podcast about comedy. Yeah. Chris Gethard's most recent episode is outstanding. It is a jaw-dropping takedown of the state of the comedy industry versus the tech industry. He has thought about it. He's a great stand-up. I love Chris Gethard, and he's so thoughtful. And he's like, I think he's a little older than us. He feels like he's seen the world turn. And his whole thing is, the people who have won the day are the people who had a decent email list. And the person he uses as an example in Britain is Daniel Kitson. He's like, Daniel Kitson didn't do online, didn't do socials, didn't do all that. He kept a mailing list, and he's still able to get out there. And I can't sum up everything that Chris Gethard said now, because it's such a great listen. Yeah. But I think he's got that, you know, is podcasting punk rock thing, is social media punk, and his big thing is like, you can't be punk rock if you're on Instagram. And I am inclined to agree.
I would love to. Oh, this is so I love the because Daniel Kitson was somebody that I admired for years, and yeah, his mailing list is sublime. It is proper punk rock. I had a great mailing list, but I was using MailChimp, and there came a point with GDPR where you had to email everybody and say you have to. It wasn't even you can opt out. It was you have to sign up again to opt back in.
Yeah.
And that was one step too much. That combined with MailChimp at another point had a if you have over a certain number of thousand people on your mailing list, then you had to cull them or start paying. You had to start.
Oh.
And I was like, I can't afford to pay because it was quite it was like a monthly amount, and I seem to remember it being over 20 quid a month, and I was like, but I don't think I earn enough to I couldn't quite figure it out. So it was also during the pandemic. I think it was during a time when I remember thinking I don't have capacity to really make this work right now. So it got culled. And I feel like this is all the stuff behind the scenes that audiences they're not aware of. We don't shout it. And if you do shout about it, why are you shouting? And the podcast that I did Not So Lonely Planet with Hat Trick. So that was commissioned. We got it all signed and sealed before the pandemic. Then the pandemic hit, and we were trying to get it made like in the wake of the pandemic, and then trying to get it released in that. And it was like things had changed so much from what we had originally set out for the podcast to do. It felt odd, and I love what you said, Gareth, about like nowadays it's like the job is. The thing at the center of the job is more like the podcasts, the social media, the videos and stuff, and then on top of that, you as an extension, maybe you've got the live stuff. I still love feeling like the live stuff is the thing, and I wonder. I feel like it's a little bit like with you on Twitter. You felt like you were allowed to take up like a couple of sentences. I feel like if I'm on stage, people for an hour, people have opted in. They've consented to come here, listen to me with this crafted hour with ad libs and making it personalized. Everyone's consenting there. Everyone's happy. Even if you're sitting there, you're going to be out in 50 minutes, 45 minutes if you're not enjoying it. But the podcasts, I'm like, it's already so saturated. What could I possibly have to offer that would actually be of value to anybody?
Oh,
it's mental to think that, considering that I love doing stand up and love standing on stage with a microphone. So yeah, odd.
I think Stuart's point wasn't that the job is the TikTok and the extra stand-up. It's absolutely not that. It's all the job. So it's all in the same way that, like, if you speak to someone about what's the job of stand-up, they will say it's stand-up and the driving. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you can't unpick the stand-up from the or the stand-up from the train travel. You can't unpick those two things. I think young people now. This is maybe someone who's 22 is listening to this and going, what is this guy talking about? But I think it is fair to say, having gone back to the open mic circuit, stood in front of like a room of people, performed to a room of 20 people and 15 phones, all filming so that everyone can get their bit for TikTok. It's like, it's not saying, oh, the job's TikTok, and then it's a mulch. It's all one thing. It's all one thing. And I think podcasting has fallen into all the one thing because it's all about, I don't know. I mean, God, can I imagine it telling a 16-year-old me that comedy is these days about a personal brand? That's pretty bloody miserable, isn't it? But I think it's true. I think it's. I don't know how people can compartmentalize well enough to be able to do. Okay, on Mondays we do podcasts. On Tuesdays we do TikTok video editing. I don't know. Like, no wonder everybody's overwhelmed and being diagnosed with. How do you flip between all these multiple different things? I struggle to even. I do the filming. I film every single show that I do, but then you have to edit the damn thing, and then you've got to schedule it and make sure it has captions. Then you have to interact with the captions, and then you get down to the polarization thing of like the rage baiting. If you're doing like my most viral bits of content are the stuff that I've done about my mental health, because then you have people commenting about, oh, it's all made up, it's all attention seeking, and then it's like, okay, well, we're having this debate that's happening in the comments section, and I'm like, I've done this, have we not moved on beyond this? But the polarizing is the point, and that's what
I get very upset about is that it's like that I don't want to win. I don't want to become like have all the followers because of the polarization of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things I was going to ask you both was about posters and flyers. The design choice and how much of a creative process that is, and is that a nice kind of mini project in itself about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I get really passionate about poster design. I'm very visual visual person, and I love putting Easter eggs into designs and things. I love doing it. I work with somebody who I've worked with for a few years called Andrew Leake, and I met him because he came to one of my shows back in 2014 at the Edinburgh Fringe, and then I bumped into him. No, 2015, and then I bumped into him the next day on the street, and I was like, "I remember you. You were in my show yesterday. Thank you so much for coming." And we ended up having a chat, and now we work together on a bunch of projects. He's part of my team for the Arts Council supported project in 2020 later this year. But he designs my posters. So to have that shared language and the shared experience of the visual language over the past few years and what worked well, what still resonates with people. Like there was a poster I had in 2017 and 2018 for a show called Butterfly Effect that I still get people commenting and saying, "Oh yeah, the butterfly show." And I'm like, yeah, that it was about kindness and how kindness could change the world. Which nowadays in 2026, I judge myself for that, but it was a good show. But yeah, I love the process. I love like working with a photographer. I worked with Steve Ullathorne this year, which I've worked with him in previous years. Working with a photographer who gets you and understands what it is you're trying to do, and also has that artistic eye to sort of play with whatever costume or whatever vibe, whatever mood you're bringing. And there's certain I was really nervous about getting those photos done because I've been on a bit of a continued journey with my body with illnesses and things in the last couple of years. And it meant a lot to me to be able to be like, right, I'm putting this money aside and I'm going to get this photo shoot done. I came away with so many photos, so they'll be around for the next couple of shows. But Steve has this eye where he'll show you certain shots and we'll all be like, it's bigger than the model, it's bigger than the dress, it's something else that's esoteric that we've all sort of contributed to, and it's come together in something else. And with my poster this year, we played around with like various ideas. Like the original work in progress poster was a really completely opposite attitude, where I had a cosplay photo shoot with my partner when I went to a Comic-Con dressed as Emma Frost from the X-Men, and it just had this kind of power, and I was like, well, that kind of shows the show in the nerdy sense. And I had a lot of people coming along to the show in the previews because they saw the X-Men Emma Frost reference in the visuals, and part of me was like, maybe I should have just stuck with that. But the one that I've gone for with Villain Era is me in this sort of like this quite gothic, sheer black, witchy dress. And we played around, like I'm sort of walking and it's sort of swishing around my feet, and I'm properly eyeballing the person I'm looking at, so yourself who's looking at the poster. And there's a sort of a smile that I've got that it's very like we're going into this together, like come with me, I've got a secret and we're gonna go on this journey together. And we played around with it being me going through woods with like mist swirling around my feet, and eventually we just kept coming back to the very stark black dress, black stars on a white background, so all the laurels are black, and it's really stripped down and bare minimum. And it felt like it was like there's a black and white thing that we talk about in the show, and like morally grey areas, which I like the illusion there, but also it feels like a line being drawn between like a previous me and new me. And this show is very much like I've passed a certain, like I'm in my 40s now, and I'm like, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not vanishing, I'm gonna be like Madonna. I'm going to keep going, keep getting older, and be proud of getting older and being an older woman on stage. I think that we need more of that. So I like there is also another Easter egg that is just for the pure nerds, because Andy and I are both massive Bowie fans, and so the fact that we've got a sort of an acknowledgement of Black Star there is very helpful. There's I think that I love that process. I love kind of finding the images that draw people in and that speak to the show in a visual way. I sometimes prefer that to a lot of other aspects of the run up to the Fringe as well. So yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it, and I love collecting them all as we go along.
Yeah. And Gareth, how did you find the process of kind of visualizing your show
Yeah,
in a poster or leaflet?
It's funny because I think if you'd have asked me a year ago or longer ago, I think I'd have assumed that I would have gone big photo shoot, get someone to design it and things like that. But it all happened in quite a weird incremental way, which was there was a chance to make an online advert for the Camden Fringe website, and I thought it wasn't that expensive, and I thought I'm going to do it. And so I used like Adobe Express, which is like their cheap little designer little thing. And I used a couple of templates, and I made something quite fast, and I changed the colours, and I did it, and I was like, that's all right. And then suddenly I had to go to Edinburgh with 6 days' notice. That happened. So that wasn't enough time to get someone to design a flyer. So I sort of took that and went, oh, well, what do I like about that? Well, the photo's all right, so I'll do the photo. And then the font is fine, sort of like that. So then I made the flyer for that. And then I had to design the back, and I did that like literally in an afternoon. And then it came to like making the one for the Leicester Comedy Festival, and I was like, oh well, the one I did last time is fine, so I'll just quickly like change the copy and I'll do that. And then suddenly, when it came to making the Edinburgh one, I went, do you know what? I have sort of incrementally drifted towards, I think, what I want. At which point, then I went, well, the last thing is a photo. So the photos on the front is taken by my partner. And I was umming and ahhing, as like, should I? Because I knew what I wanted to wear. I needed to wear what I wear in the show and all this sort of thing. And I was umming and ahhing about it. And I was still pondering, do I get someone to do this, or how do we do it? And then, when I had the idea of having a main photo and then a photo in the background in which I'm looking as to whether or not I've got shit on my shoe, that thought made me laugh, and I went, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do that. Like, so, yeah, so the photo is a Polaroid of me up close with dressed in the costume for the show, and then in the background is me standing in a field looking at my own shoe. And yeah, it was, the other thing is that I have been constantly surprised how early the deadlines are for things. That has been so there was very much a moment of, you've got to get this ready by this date, you've got to and in every single case it's been earlier than I thought. And in every single case I've kind of gone like, I haven't got time to get this, I'm going to have to just stay up late and do it. And so there was a kind of like, oh, I'm going to have to learn how to use InDesign in a weekend and things like that. So yeah, it's all been, I've done a lot more of it than I was expecting, and I feel like I drifted into it. But I've quite enjoyed it. I don't know if anyone's gonna. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I thought I would end up getting a lot more people involved, and then it ended up just always being a scramble and me at 2 a.m. going, so how does this work? What's a layer? But yeah, I think the other thing is that because I did a maths degree, weirdly I did a lot in computer science, and I did a lot in computer vision and computer graphics. And so I know quite a bit about RGB and CKMY, or CKY, whatever the number. But basically, all the maths of colour. And I found myself in the middle of the night reading academic papers about the difference between colour mixing, going, you've got this in you. You know what this is. You know, it's in there somewhere. Like, try to remember it. So, yeah, who knows? When I get to Edinburgh and the whole thing looks orange and I've got it all wrong, let's see. But yeah, it's been interesting. I feel like I sort of like pulled up some sort of latent ability that was sitting there. But no, I did it all, but I ended up doing it myself, largely. But not necessarily for cost reasons. Organisational, more than that.
Yeah. Just a couple of quick questions to finish off. So you mentioned briefly that, Gareth, that Juliette would be doing some flyering with you. Are you going to do some flyering yourself?
I probably will. Yeah, I will. Because I think I start at 1. I've got a long walk in. I may as well hand some people some flowers while I do it. Yeah, I will. So I'll certainly be flyering for Juliette's show. But I would imagine I would fly for my own show as well. It is a weird thing. I can understand why people don't like. I can totally understand why people don't like flying for their own show. I do understand it. You quite like doing it, don't you, Juliette? You don't mind flying for your own show.
Yeah, I used to absolutely love it. I don't mind it because I like the fact that when you meet somebody and they like your vibe, then you're both hand selecting each other, to spend the hour
Yeah.
together. So I do like it like that. But I also have in recent years realized that I don't want to exhaust myself because I do think that I can do a better show if I manage my energy levels a bit better. And so this year I also have the problem in inverted commas of the 3 shows, meaning that I will have very limited flyering time. I will be flying for you before your show. So my plan is usually 12 o'clock till 1. I would like to be flying for Gareth. Then from 1 o'clock until 3 o'clock, 3:30, I will be hopefully flying for the Mixed Bill lineup show and my 6:30 show. Then after the Mixed Bill lineup show ends at 4:45, I will leave at 5. I have an hour's worth of flying outside the Gilded Balloon before I go in at 6 o'clock, ready for my 6:30 show. And my 8:30 show, I don't know when I'm going to fly for that. I will be I'll be exit flying all of these shows for the other shows. And I also do have one person who I am paying to fly for me, who is also an old friend who I studied at the National Film and Television School. We studied comedy writing and producing together. They host the Fringe stage at Comic-Con, where I perform in May and October. So, it's all this lovely sort of synchronicity of different social circles, how I met, and the right people, working with the right people rather than like people I trust, people I know who get the show and get the vibe, get the people who will enjoy it as well. Like that's really what I'm after. I've spent years where I've worked with people where I'm like, actually that wasn't the right person to be on this, and in the team they didn't have the right energy for the show to flourish. So this year, small team, lot of energy.
Thanks to Gareth and Juliette for coming onto the podcast. You can find out more details in the show notes about where to find them, both online and at the Fringe. If you enjoyed this, check out our other episodes of Variety comedians, musicians, authors and others in creative industries talking about trying to make creativity pay. Thanks for listening.